Hey everybody, welcome back to the Race 5 Smokehouse and Grill, and today we are taking this 9.5 pound eye of round and making these awesome Chicago style Italian beef sandwiches. Let's go! So I found this 10-pound eye of round on sale at my local grocery store, and I thought what better dish than to try to make with this than some Italian beef sandwiches. So if you've ever been to Chicago, you know what an Italian beef sandwich is. Roast beef, cooked low and slow till about medium rare, cut super thin, and that meat is dipped in a gravy that we call au jus, put onto a bun, and you could dip this whole thing in the gravy. It's fantastic, but you dress it with some Giardiniera and some cheese. That's how I make it. So we're gonna try to make this on the Weber Kettle today. So first step we're going to do is start trimming this eye of round down. There is a lot of silver skin and a lot of thick hard fat on the back here, so we're going to give this a good trim. I'm going to try to take all that off and just leave that good beef exposed. If there's some thin fat on here, that's okay, we'll leave that, but we really want to get down to get this beef exposed. Let's start trimming. This end gets really thin here, so I'm just gonna square this up, and this is gonna help later when we're slicing, and it's just gonna cook a little more even. Now this is one of those cuts you could spend a day and a half trimming, but you just wanna get it to the best you can. This is gonna be sliced thin later. We just wanna get this good so where we can get a good seasoning on there. So we have this eye of round trimmed up. It's looking really, really pretty now. Little bits of fat that we left, but again, that's okay. That's gonna go away eventually when you're cooking it. This is a really lean piece of meat. That's why we're only gonna go to about medium rare with it. And as you can see here, we have the grain running this way, and when you go to slice it later, you wanna go against the grain. So that's good that we have these edges notched off here, because when we go to slice it, we're gonna know which way to go exactly. We're gonna do a nice heavy season like we do most of our beef, but I'm gonna just do garlic powder, salt, and black pepper. We're using kosher salt, and we're using 16 mesh black pepper so we can get a nice thick coat on here. So let's get this seasoned up real quick. And with Italian beef sandwiches, there is a heavy, salty, garlicky flavor, but a lot of that comes from the au jus that we're gonna make here in a little bit. But we still wanna season this pretty heavy because it is a giant piece of meat. So we're gonna hit it with some garlic powder and some kosher salt. And then that awesome 16 mesh pork mafia black pepper. You can get a nice heavy coat on here. And we're gonna go ahead and repeat this on all sides. Now we got enough left on this plate where I'm just gonna go ahead and dip it around, make sure we get that side, and get this side. All sides are rubbed up. Now we are gonna let this set up, let that rub adhere to this meat a little bit. We know it's gonna be ready when that rub looks kind of wet and sticking to the meat. In the meantime, while this is getting set up, let's go start up that Weber Kettle. Meat is seasoned and setting up. We're gonna get this Weber Kettle fired up. Gonna start it with a couple wax cubes here. And I'm using the slow and sear today. You could just use your regular Weber baskets that come with the grills or that you may have. This is the slow and sear, and I didn't fill it up all the way. It's kind of a loose pack in here because I don't want the temperatures climbing too high on this cook. So we are just gonna start these wax cubes on one end here. Once these coals are lit, I'm actually gonna add these couple chunks of hickory so we could get a good smoke flavor on the eye of round. So let's throw these on there real quick. We only need a couple, and this is gonna be somewhat of a quick cook. I'm looking at somewhere about 3 hours maybe, because we're only shooting for an internal temperature of somewhere around 130, 135, all said and done. We're gonna get this on the grill and let it get up to maybe 115, 120, then we're gonna give a quick sear around the outside, and then we're gonna pull it off. We'll be back when these coals are up and it's time to put the meat on the grill. Grill is up to temp. We're trying to hover around a 250 mark today. We want to keep it nice and low and slow, but if it's between a 225, 275 mark, I'm going to be happy with that. So let's get this meat on. I put the wider end closer to the fire, even though this is a little thicker here. It's pretty uniform overall, so it should cook pretty evenly. I am going to stick a temp probe into the center here. because these outsides are gonna cook faster than the inside, and we wanna make sure that it's all the way through at least our desired temperature. So let's cover this up and let it go. We'll see how long it takes. I'm expecting a couple hours here. This side of round is coming along great. It's been about an hour or so on the smoker, and we've got an internal temperature of about 83. So we're cruising along. Now it's time for us to make our au jus. We're gonna start by taking some beef stock. If you make your own beef stock, great. I don't have any beef stock, so I went and got store purchase type. We're starting with a full container. This is 32 ounces or 4 cups. And now this is the fun part. We really get to season it how we like. Gravy here, you really want to make it salty and beefy and savory, because this is going to be used as a dressing that goes over the beef and over the bun. So you really want to make sure that this is packed with flavor, because you're really, even though you're putting a kind of a bunch on there, you still need it to be super flavorful. So we're going to kick this up, and we've got a ton of ingredients we're about to add. And all of these are eyeballed, but it's roughly gonna be a tablespoon or so of all the dry ingredients. And then I have half a white onion and 4 big cloves of garlic. I'm gonna start with some kosher salt. Again, roughly a tablespoon. Some coarse black pepper. Some paprika. We're gonna go a little lighter with that, maybe half a tablespoon. Some granulated garlic. I love mine to be garlicky and oniony and herby tasting. Got some celery salt, some coriander seed, some crushed red pepper, some onion powder, a couple bay leaves. Then we're gonna put our half an onion or so. We're gonna see how much it takes. And this is gonna be rough chopped. And then the cloves of garlic, I like to give them a quick smash. That really opens up the flavors for when it's boiling in here. So we're gonna throw these in there as well. And we're gonna bring this up to a boil. And don't worry about the large chunks in there, because after this is done boiling for a while and getting integrated, we're gonna go ahead and strain this out. I feel like this leaves a little more liquid in here, so I have another beef stock here. Again, we have a huge chunk of meat. We're gonna need a lot of gravy. Give it a quick stir. And we're gonna let this simmer for a while. Once it gets up to a boil, then we're gonna actually beef it up a little further. We've got some Better Than Bullion beef paste, and we're gonna put a couple of tablespoons in there also to get a bigger, richer, beefier flavor. But we wanna get this up to a boil first. So let's throw the cover on and let that come to a boil. This is up to a nice boil here. We're gonna add a couple scoops of this Better Than Bullion beef base paste. This is really gonna kick up that beef flavor. You wanna wait until this is boiling to do this so it could dissolve better in here. Give it a good mix, get that all settled in there. It smells amazing. Very fragrant from all those seasonings and beefy from the stock and from the base. I'm gonna let this quickly come up to another boil, and then we're gonna turn it down and let it simmer on medium to low heat. And we're gonna let it go for maybe a half hour or so, just to let all those flavors meld together and marry really well. We're gonna take it off, filter it, get all those big pieces out of there, and then we're gonna let it cool down. So let's cover this up, let this simmer. This au jus has been simmering for about a half an hour, 45 minutes now. We're gonna pull it off and strain it. So let's go ahead and get this off. We're gonna put it right through a strainer into another pot here. We're gonna shut this off for now. And it's okay if some of the smaller pieces get through. It's okay, it's just gonna add to the seasoning. I just wanna get the majority of the big stuff out of there. So that's all strained, it's off to the side. I'm gonna put it back on the hot plate, but this is off just to kind of let it temper and cool back down here. That is done. Actually, let's go check on the beef. Internal temp right now is at about 122. So let's take a quick look, see how we're doing. I did rotate it one time to make sure that both sides were getting the direct heat or were closer to the heat at some point. And I did spritz once. Let's take a look. It is looking great texture. Gonna give it a quick spritz here. We're at that 122, 23 mark at this point, so we're gonna go ahead and hit it with a quick sear and rotate it while it's searing, and we're gonna try to get it up to about 135 for that medium rare, and then we're gonna pull it off and let it rest. I'm gonna go ahead and move that charcoal around a little bit so we can try to get a nice overall sear. And that looks to be the right amount of charcoal because there's not a ton left, but there's gonna be enough left to get us the sear that we're looking for. This should be nice and hot now. I'm gonna throw that on there for a minute or two. This is temping exactly where we want it to temp, so it's time to pull it off and let it rest. We have our beef ready. We have our au jus ready. Now the only thing left to do is wait. This is the hardest part of the whole recipe, is waiting. So we're actually gonna let these cool down. This is gonna go in the refrigerator for a little while, and we're gonna let it cool down for a couple hours. We want it to be nice and cooled down when we slice it. And we don't wanna overcook it by putting in too hot of a liquid, because what we're gonna do is slice it, and we're gonna dip this and let it cook in here for a couple minutes, but we wanna keep this 140 or 150. That way we don't overcook the meat, because we still want this meat to be nice and tender and not overcooked. So we're gonna let this rest. We're gonna go get it in the fridge here in a little bit. We're gonna let it cool down a little bit first and then put it in the refrigerator. And we're gonna come back when it's time to slice this up and make our sandwiches. We'll be back when it's time to do that. We have our beef that's been resting. It's about 85 degrees internal right now. We're gonna go ahead, slice this open and start getting some slices. Now there's a couple ways to do this. I'm actually gonna take these natural juices, save these, and get these in here. That's just gonna add to the flavor. So we got our piece of meat here all ready to go. Now you can take your time, and you want finely sliced the whole way through. Man, wow. And this is how you would want it. You want it nice and thin like this. Look at that smoke ring this thing got. Holy cow, that looks incredible. Oh, it's so good. That's delicious. But instead of taking your time, you need a really sharp knife, a really steady hand. My buddy Paul Del Ponte let me borrow his meat slicer. So I'm just gonna hack off a section here and we're just gonna slice it up. It's gonna go a lot quicker. We're gonna get a super thin deli style cut on this, which is gonna be great. And when we warm it up in the jus, we're gonna take off a hunk about like this. Man, that looks good. Perfect medium rare. We're gonna put this off to the side and we're gonna get the slicer up here right now. We're gonna turn this style to setting 1. We're gonna see how thin it comes out. If we need to go thinner or thicker, we can. You wanna be safe with these because these things are sharp. Perfect. So we're on setting 3 here. This is perfect. Look how thin this is. This is exactly what you're looking for. And it's gonna pick up all those flavors from that jus as we're warming it up. Move this over to the side. Now I'm gonna go ahead and slice the rest of this up right now. We'll be back when it's time to warm it up and make our sandwich. We have this beautiful beef shredded. I'm telling you what, using that meat slicer made all the difference in the world. This stuff is almost see-through thin and it's gonna cook up great in this gravy here. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna take a couple handfuls that we're gonna make for our sandwiches. We're gonna put it in the au jus, let it come up to temperature. We're gonna try to get it back to that 140 degree range, which is perfect. And we're gonna scoop it off and make our sandwich. So let's get some of this in there. Oh, and quick note, I did taste this and it's got a kick to it from that red pepper flake. So if you're not too big on spicy foods, you might want to dial back that red pepper flake. To me, it tastes great, but there is a little kick, which I like, but I'm pretty sure my wife's not going to. Let's get this in there. Get that in there for now. We'll get this off to the side, and in about 3, 4, 5 minutes, when this is heated up thoroughly, we're gonna make our sandwich. It's time to build this sandwich. You gotta get yourself a good French roll, one that is pretty soft, but still hearty enough that it's gonna maintain integrity from all the juices that we're putting on here. Open this guy up. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna hit it with some of this au jus here. Just this juice and the bread alone is good enough to eat. Now there are traditions in Chicago where you can get it dry, you can get it wet, or you can get the whole thing dipped, where they'll just take the whole sandwich and dip it in there. Hey, do whatever's good for you. I like mine wet like this. I don't necessarily go the dip route. Sometimes I do. It depends on the day. All right, let's get some of this meat out of here. Oh, this is looking fantastic. Perfectly cooked, exactly the way you want it to look. And then you dress these up with some mozzarella cheese. That's what I like. Other people use provolone or no cheese or whatever. And then you finish it off with a giardiniera. Giardiniera is basically a vegetable relish that is soaked in oil over time. And man, you could get spicy, medium, or mild. I love a good spicy giardiniera, but we're doing medium today. That way other people could eat it too, because they could be hot at times. So you get this giardiniera all over that, and man, oh man, is this looking like it's gonna be good. Woo. All right, so then you put this bad boy together, and you just get into it. There's no way to eat these daintily. You guys just gotta get into it. That came out perfect. This is one of the best things I've ever cooked. Gosh, that came out good. If you ever find an eye of round or a top round, bottom round, any of those rounds, pick it up, throw it on the Weber, low and slow, follow this recipe, and I guarantee you're gonna have one of the best sandwiches of your life. You got a little spice in there. You've got all that savoriness from everything we added to the au jus, beefiness, the giardiniera and the cheese. It all goes together perfectly, and that's why this is an institution in Chicago. You're gonna find these at every little hot dog stand, anywhere. You gotta try making these Italian beef sandwiches. I appreciate you checking this out. If you like what we did, please give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, follow me on social media, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks again, everybody. Peace.